Welcome back. Welcome back. It's an Olympic year, and this year the Games will be held just a short distance from where I'm sitting right now in the heart of London. But it's a global event. The Olympic Stadium was finished some time ago, and while work is continuing apace on several of the other venues, we're assured that everything is on schedule. A remarkable achievement for the opening ceremony on July the 27th, and I'm delighted to be joined now by the man in charge, Sebastian Coe, Seb Coe, the head of the London Organising Committee for the Games. And you once said that when a year started where you were going to be competing in the Olympics, there was a special feeling at the beginning of a year. What was there a special feeling this year where it's all on your shoulders?
Well, thank you for that.
Modest.
Modest, no pressure observation. It is a different year. As a competitor, you woke up on January the 1st, you knew that that was the most important year in the 4-year cycle. Maybe the most important year in your whole career. Because, you know, you're lucky to get to more than one Games. And I guess that I wasn't the only one in the organising committee this year. You know, we've got 2,500 people there now. But I certainly wasn't the only one to wake up on January the 1st this year thinking, my goodness, it's, you know, just a few hundred days now to delivery.
Yeah. And the magic thing is that the word is that everything is, if anything, ahead of schedule.
Yeah, we're slightly ahead on some of the construction issues, but here comes a sort of large health warning.
Yes.
Because the venues are, in essence, completed structures, but they are not venues where tomorrow, next week, even in 2 months' time, we could stage events. We will need every moment in order to put all the overlay in, all the things that turn those shells of buildings into the theatres of sport. You would get this of all people. We have a broadcast centre, which is in essence a large empty building at the moment. Between now and the opening ceremonies, your teams at Al Jazeera will want to work in a studio there. We've got 100 of those studios to create between now and the Games so that you can beam your images around the world. So a mountain of work still to do, but we're in good shape. And
what about in terms of the preparations? Was the worries, I suppose, the obvious worry is security, I suppose.
Look, you know,
inevitable.
You and I know that, you know, we live in a complicated, conflicted, occasionally, you know, complex world. Every Games, for as long as I can remember, and as long as you've been working on them, have been underpinned by security. There is a challenge here. And the real challenge, actually, is to make sure that people recognise when they come to London, they're coming to a sporting celebration. They're coming to a city that, you know, with all its 300 different communities, is going to welcome the world. Of course, we want to create a safe and secure Games, but there has to be proportionality here.
Yes.
We don't want people feeling they're coming to a city and locked down for 2 weeks when they should be really enjoying everything that London has to offer. So these are the challenges that, you know, we face. We will get there, and it'll be proportionate.
Yeah, and I mean, in terms of the checks and of people as they go in and so on, I mean, will it be like getting on a plane?
Yeah, it will be. I mean, the real skill, of course, is to make sure that you get people in and out of venues as quickly as you possibly can, but as securely as you can. So there will be imaging equipment, there will be people there, you know, the old-fashioned patting down and all that sort of stuff. And that's what our teams are working on at the moment, because, again, you want to make sure that the spectator experience is one where they remember the sport, not the fact they sat for hours in security systems.
Yes, absolutely.
It's quite helpful to get Usain Bolt to the line at the beginning of the 100 metres and not stuck in security either.
Yeah, yes, he must be there. He must be there. And I mean, what about in terms of the people enjoying it and I mean, will there be virtually all full houses?
Yes,
actually, they really will.
Well,
that's fantastic,
David. It's an extraordinary story. You know, of course. You know, you've probably followed the ticket, you know, the ticket sagas alongside me, but the reality of it is this will be the first Games where international federations are going to be taking their athletes, and those athletes will be performing in front of full houses. That it is an unprecedented, unequalled. We've broken every world record on ticket demand. We had 2 million people applied for 23 million tickets. That has been an extraordinary story. It's created its challenges. It's not obviously the opening paragraph of an ultimately happy ending for some, but it's an extraordinary story because we'll have full venues. 2/3 of the tickets are under 50 quid. And we will also make sure that we reach our budgetary targets on that as well.
And if you're writing your dreams, what dreams come true and so on, about what would you like to be able to say, summarising this Olympics after it's over?
Well, I suppose the athlete in me, and I will always see this through the optic of the athlete in me tells me that I have got to get this right for them. I cannot by conscience invite the world's most talented competitors from 205 nations to come to a city where at the most important moment in their lives, and every time you see a competitor walk into that venue, remember that they've probably devoted over half their young lives to that moment. I have to make this work for them. No stone can be left unturned. They can never be allowed to become victims of our own shortcomings. So for me, this is ostensibly about getting it right for the competitor.
And talking of that, the subject of drugs has not been as pervasive as it has been in the build-up to other Olympics. Is that because there's a feeling that that is being conquered, that problem, or is that oversimplifying?
I'll wear another hat today to answer that question, because I'm Vice President of the International Track and Field Federation, the largest by some distance of the Olympic sports. We have a zero tolerance in my sport to drug abuse. We will have a zero tolerance in the Games in London. We will have technology that is more advanced than any technology that has been used to detect the cheats. And my message actually is a very firm one. If you're going to come to London and you're going to cheat, you will get caught, because we have the technology to do that. It's
better now than it was 4 years ago, yeah?
Yes, even then. We can detect a thimble full of an alien substance in a swimming pool. So think very hard and carefully about, wanting to step outside the realms. And I think that message is getting through. But I'm not complacent about this, because we will never, really ever in reality sit in a drug-free sporting environment. But what we can do is we can educate, we can make sure that young people recognise that it's unnecessary. I won Olympic titles without doing that it is actually dangerous on health grounds. And frankly, to use an old-fashioned word, it's just cheating.
What about the other side of the coin, the Paralympics, which is a noble plus, and the thought of cheating or anything couldn't be a million miles away from that. But I mean, some people have said that it would be rather uplifting all round if, for the next Olympics or whatever, the Paralympics could run contiguously along with the Olympics. Do you think that would inspire the Paralympic movement and so on, or do you think it would get in the way of the ceremony?
There are two things here. First of all, the Paralympic movement don't want that. They want to be distinct and different.
Right.
And you're right, it has a completely different spirit, the Paralympic Games. I mean, I think it is stunning. It's not just, this is not just sentimental value. This is stunning because it is world-class sport you're watching. Secondly, the operational complexity of trying to combine both events at the same time. If you think about some of the added complexity, the added service level that understandably you need to apply for Paralympic competitors, some of the things that you need to think about in the village, the accessibility, you just take the average track and field facility, the way that you have in a shot put circle to have extra fittings for wheelchairs, all those sorts of things that allow these guys to compete at the highest level. That would be very, very complex and very difficult to combine both events at the same time.
And what about, as you think back to when you were growing up and reaching out eventually to try and compete in the Olympics and so on, and it was all very much, it was a different world then, but there was amateur meant amateur and so on and so forth, and you didn't have extremely multi-million footballers playing in the Olympics and things like that. Do you think there's been a loss of purity along the way, or is this just a fair adjustment to an ever-changing world?
I think it's a fair adjustment to an ever-changing world. I've never been in the camp that has believed that because somebody gets paid for doing something, either in sport or in anything, that they are sort of morally less worthy of the person that, you know, that isn't being paid for it. You know, great art, you know, comes at a price. You know, you don't sort of sit there thinking that because somebody, you know, somebody painted an extraordinary landscape scene but got paid for it, that it's any less worthy than the person who created it for free. So I actually think it's important that the Olympic movement reached out to get the best talent it possibly could wherever it existed, but at the same time recognising that actually the Olympic sports, you know, the Olympic movement, the Olympic sports are made up of a lot of sports that need the Olympic Games simply to survive that 4-year cycle.
That's fascinating. Well, we're all looking forward to watching those Olympic experiences this year with less than 200 days to go, Seb.
Thank you for reminding me, David.
No time for sleep tonight. Thanks a million.
My pleasure. Thank you, as ever.
Bless you. Seb Coe there, the only man who's won 2 consecutive 1,500 metres in the Olympic Games. The US election bandwagon rolled on this week as the New Hampshire primary announced their winners and losers in the Republican race. The main winner was, of course, Mitt Romney, who easily won his 2nd consecutive primary. The biggest losers were probably the 2 Ricks, Messrs Perry and Santorum, who ended up with single-figure support. A surprising, actually, and a very respectable 2nd place went to the maverick 76-year-old Congressman Ron Paul, whose libertarian message went down well in the Granite State. And with me now is Doug Wead. He's Ron Paul's strategic advisor, joining us right now from Washington. Doug, welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. Beginning with the events of this week, it's been presumably an exciting week, obviously, for you with the outcome of the vote on Tuesday. And as a result, you described Ron Paul, you said, Ron Paul is the clean boat in a sea of garbage. Epic words, yes?
That's right. That's right. I mean, the system in America is, as it is in many parts of the world, is very corrupt. And as Balzac said, behind every great fortune, there's a great crime. But right now, it's getting a little out of hand.
Do you think that actually this, the clean image, which we've seen work in various parts of the world, but do you think if that gets through to the voters, that's a big plus, that image for Ron Paul? It must be, I suppose.
It's a very big plus because the corruption, I don't want to overuse that word, but it's pretty hard not to. The corruption has reached the level that the people are losing their money. Sometimes you don't mind the elitists gaming the system and making their fortune, but when you're losing the value of your own home or losing your home, you're losing the value of your IRAs. When students are paying 18% in some cases for a student loan, and big banks that sit on the central bank give themselves multi-trillion-dollar loans at 0% interest. Well, I think you're reaching the point of critical mass, and people are upset.
And in light of that, and in light of the response you've had this week and so on, what is your policy at this moment about running in Florida? Will Ron Paul run in Florida?
Yes, he's going to run for each of these contests. We focus on the next one. We have to look ahead a little bit, but we focus on each one. Ron Paul is in this for the long haul. What a lot of the media have missed is that in the process of running for president, Ron Paul is changing the Republican Party. The whole paradigm is changing in a way that hasn't happened since 1988 when the evangelical Christians co-opted the Republican Party, and back to '64 when the Goldwater Republicans took it over. So we're taking over the party from county levels up So a lot more is going on than meets the eye. And there's a whole new movement, a virtual industry of publishing houses, nonprofit corporations, all centered around this idea of getting back to the Constitution.
Do you expect Jeb Bush, as some have hinted, that he will be joining the race, or do you think it's too late for him?
It's too late. You know, running for president, I mean, so much money is at stake, and so many trillions of dollars are at stake. I've compared it or likened it to, let's say you're building a shopping mall. You may have all the money in the world. You may have all the contacts, all the permits. You got the lights on, working 24/7, night shift, day shift. It still takes time to build a mall, because there's little things you have to do. Right now, Newt Gingrich isn't on the ballot in his home state of Virginia. John Huntsman's not on the state ballot in Arizona. There's 24 presidential candidates on the ballot, but he's not on it. So some of these gentlemen weren't running for president. They were running for cabinet positions. They were running for bestseller. And now it's catching up with them. We're running for president and building a movement. And of course, Ron Paul has something none of these candidates have. He has a son who's a U.S. Senator.
Is there a danger, do you think, that he'll be seen as too much of a maverick as a candidate and legalizing marijuana, or whatever the issue? Or do you think that those things are refreshing for a perceptive public to understand?
It depends on who you are. If you're gaming the system, if you're bribing people legally through lobbying efforts, Ron Paul represents a real danger to you. If you're a Pentagon contractor, you're making money. For example, the recent thing is, I'm sure you've heard of this, the United States now has boots on the ground in Australia. And the rationale behind that are thousands of pages of memorandum that imply China has designs on Australia, so we have to have American troops there. Right. So get this, China is loaning the United States to put troops in Australia to defend her against China. Ron Paul thinks that people are gaming this system. They're making money off of it. He's not going to send young American soldiers to die for a Pentagon contractor. He will do it to defend the United States. So is that popular? It's popular with some. It's not popular with people who have a lot of money and a lot of pull and who are making a lot of money off the way things are.
There are obviously the two parties, and he could be the candidate for one of the two parties. Or do you think he would actually, given that he's a maverick and so on, do you think he'd prefer to do a Ross Perot or not?
I don't think that he will. A lot of people want him to do that, but I don't think that he will. He doesn't get a lot of very good coverage here in the United States. In fact, when national comedians can joke about how the media in America treats Ron Paul and the whole nation laugh and know what the comedian's talking about. Was it Cicero who said that the best humor is truth? But in any case, if the whole nation laughs, that means the whole nation understands what's going on. An hour debate where he's given 89 seconds. And the conflict of interest is never mentioned. The fact that some of the companies who provide the media coverage for him are in fact receiving these gigantic interest-free loans from the Federal Reserve. So there's a lot of people who don't want Ron Paul to gain more visibility. The fun thing is, now, 4 years ago, 74% of the American people didn't know what the Federal Reserve is. Today, your car mechanic can explain it all to you.
Yeah. Doug, thank you very much indeed for joining us, and thank you for bringing your life and vigour to this contest, and we look forward to following what happens in the months ahead. Thanks a million for joining us.
Thank you. It was an honour.
Few could imagine a world without the internet. The power of the network is such that social media sites have been heralded as a revolutionary force across the world. But the government of Iran, watching the progress of the Arab Spring with increasing fear, is fighting back with a clampdown on the internet that will leave no place for dissent there. Nazenin Ansari, diplomatic editor of Kayhan, an online Persian language newspaper based here, is with me now to discuss what this means. And starting with, last time we talked here was a couple of years ago. It was 2008, actually, wasn't it? And how are things today in terms of freedom in Iran? Are things worse than then, or a little bit better?
Well, as far as freedom is concerned, there are more people unfree today than there were in 2008 when we last spoke, 2009. It means that there are more people who understand what the others have been through. So in that, there's an awareness and there's an awakening, I think, about what everybody has missed in the past 30 years.
And how are the government planning to deal with the internet censorship? What exactly are they going to do? Do they want to wipe it out altogether in the internet?
Well,
or the foreign internet?
Yes, well, yes, they would like to do it, but whether it is possible or not, that's another question. Certainly, they have slowed down the speed of the internet in the past few weeks, and they have claimed that the sharks in the Persian Gulf have been eating the cables. So people who have, in view of all the economic difficulties that are taking place in Iran at the moment and the coming of the elections, people, for example, cannot visit sites that have that are for foreign currency exchange. They cannot, for example, even like they say that they are censoring text messages that contain the word dollar. At the same time, they have in December they brought in 25 new laws about for the internet about elections, and then in January they brought another 20 laws, which was directed to cyber cafe owners and net citizens. Altogether, there are over 45 laws. But what is very important at the moment is that these laws and regulations are very vague and very broad. So anyone can fall foul of the regime, and a lot of them have got the death penalty attached to them. So you can be, and there are a couple of bloggers at the moment that are facing the death penalty.
Are there?
Yes.
It's gone that far?
Yes.
Is their plan possible to work, I mean, unfortunately work, or is it impossible? Are they reaching too far?
Well, they have invested over $1 billion, and this is according to Fars News Agency, in creating a halal internet, in the sense that ordinary citizens cannot be able to have access to World Wide Web, Google, all these other sites, Twitter, Facebook. And so they will have their own intranet in Iran. But whether that is possible or not, I don't think so, because, you know, in China we have seen the Chinese have attempted to do that, and they couldn't do it. There are always ways to pass these lines. But at the end of the day, I think what is important to note that change won't stop because, you know, they cut the internet, and they have been able to slow it, but they haven't been able to stop the internet. And what brings about change is awareness. What brings change is about an objective. Where do you want to go? And I think that is something, it's an aspiration, and that is something that they won't be able to control.
Right. Thank you very much indeed, and very good to have Nazenin with us again. That's all we have time for this week, I'm afraid. My thanks to all my guests, my vigorous group of guests. Join us again, if you can, in 7 days' time for another Frost Over the World. Happy New Year.